As a company, we've delivered millions of dollars in loads in just the past few years alone, but what does that actually mean? How much money can you actually make as a truck driver? Hey everyone, welcome back to Guild 22. Just a few things before we get started. Only 20% of you watching this video right now are subscribed to the channel, so I would really appreciate it if you took a second out of your day to scroll down, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. It's free to do, and it really helps the channel grow, so make sure you do that. Anyways, most of you watching are probably truck drivers or are considering becoming a truck driver. Either way, you've probably asked yourself, how much money should I or can I be making as a truck driver? If you're a fan of the channel, you know that I believe in complete transparency, which is why I have no problem showing you how much money our drivers make in a year. I know I pay them well, so I have no need to lie and set false expectations for all of you watching that might consider becoming a truck driver for Guild 22. By the way, new positions are always open, so feel free to apply. However, every time I post a video sharing that type of stuff, I can almost guarantee that someone will leave a comment claiming to make 6 figures in their first year of trucking, and sadly, they're not the only ones claiming that. If you look online at any job board, you'll see almost every trucking company advertising pay of $80,000, $90,000, and even $100,000 for truck drivers. But if you look at the average pay of truck drivers in 2020, you'll see that they made just a little over $47,000. This is exactly why I'm making this video, to give all of you thinking of getting into this business a little clarity, because in my opinion, transportation is the best business in the world. And until AI and autonomous trucks take over the world, we still have a long way to go before that happens. We will need truck drivers to move loads and keep the economy running. Now, let me just start off by stating the obvious. Being a truck driver is not a 9 to 5. You don't go into work, clock in, get a lunch break, and clock out. That just doesn't happen. There might be some local trucking jobs that operate that way, but the vast majority of jobs that you'll work in trucking will not be as structured. Now, some days you'll be on the road driving and waiting to get loaded or unloaded, and other days where you'll be at home, wrapped up in a blanket, watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
10 minutes. Mom, suck my...
Listen, what you do on your own time is none of my business. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, as a truck driver, you usually end up working a lot more than 40 hours a week, even though it might not feel like it. And this is really important to make a note of, especially when we start talking about how much drivers are actually getting paid. Now, in order to figure this number out, we need to know 3 things, okay? Your annual gross income, your effective hourly pay, and your real hourly pay. So your annual gross income is pretty obvious. It's just the amount of money that you actually receive every single year before you take into account tax, interest, or any other expense. Your effective hourly pay is how much you get paid while you're on duty and driving. Now, in trucking, there are hours of service rules that are put into place by the FMCSA that limit how much truck drivers can drive every single week. Now, there are a bunch of rules that you have to put together like a puzzle, and it can all get really confusing, so we won't go over it in this video. All you need to know right now is that as a truck driver, you only get paid for the hours you spend on duty and driving. Now, most people will look at their gross income and their effective hourly pay and just call it a day, But what about the time that you spend on duty, so technically on work, but you're not driving? Like, what happens when you're waiting at a dock for 2 to 3 hours a day? Or when you're doing a pre-trip and post-trip inspection? Or when you're fueling your truck, What do you get paid when you're doing all of that? Oddly enough, most carriers will not pay anything when you're on duty, not driving. Now, only when you take all of your on-duty hours into account can you figure out your real hourly pay. Let's just put all of this together and run through a realistic example together. So let's assume you become a truck driver and you start working for a trucking company. At this company, you make 55 cents per mile. You drive 7 hours a day for 6 days a week. You cover 450 miles every single day, and you spend 3 hours a day loading, unloading, fueling, etc. That means if you do the math, which I'm not going to do in front of you, but if you do the math, every single week you'll drive 2,700 miles, you'll work a total of 60 hours a week, but you're only going to get paid for the 42 hours that you spent driving, for a total weekly paycheck of $1,485. Now that doesn't sound bad at all, considering that your yearly gross income comes out to around $77,220. And even when you look at your effective hourly pay, you're making a little over $35 an hour, which is, again, really good. However, when you take into account the amount of hours you actually spent at work working, because again, you're actually working 60 hours a week, your real hourly pay is around $24.75 per hour. Now, $24.75 an hour is nothing to laugh at. It's a pretty decent income, but making around $25 an hour sounds a lot different than making $77,000 per year. And the reason for that is our own assumptions. When you're looking at a salary, we automatically assume a 40-hour work week. But again, in trucking, you can expect to drive somewhere around 40 hours a week, while the other 20 are spent doing work-related activities that don't include driving, such as waiting at a dock, getting fuel, doing pre-trip, post-trip inspections, etc. Now, I know some of you may get a little scared when you hear about 60 to 70-hour work weeks. It sounds crazy and extremely difficult to do week after week, but it only sounds crazy because, again, you're comparing it to the effort and energy it takes to work an office job for 40 hours a week. But here's the thing, it's not the same at all. When you're working an office job for 40 hours a week, you're expected to work about 37 of those hours if you take into account like 30-minute lunch breaks every single day. In other words, you're going to spend 37 hours a week producing income for your company. As a truck driver, the time spent driving, which is what produces income for us carriers, is about 42 hours a week. It's almost as if you're working an extra hour a day in comparison to a normal 9 to 5. A 60-hour work week in trucking doesn't feel like a 60-hour work week in a typical office job. Now, even though you're on duty for 60 hours a week, 15 to 20 of those hours are spent waiting, and you could use that time to watch Netflix, read a book, work out, literally anything you want to do. And this is also why many truckers never really think of calculating their real per hour rate, because to them, it doesn't feel like they're working those extra 15 to 20 hours beyond the 42 that it takes to drive, if that makes sense. Again, we made a lot of assumptions in our example, but in the real world, you're not always going to get paid 55 cents per mile. You might not be able to drive 2,700 miles per week. In fact, on average, I think you can expect to make around $18 to $20 an hour for your real hourly wage. Now, why is all of this important? Why am I putting such an emphasis on your real and effective hourly pay? Well, the main reason I want you to pay attention to this is because figuring this number out will show you how much your time is being valued by your company. Gross income is just a number that's used to deceive drivers. It's very easy to do so because, again, just look at all the job posts claiming you can potentially make $80,000 to $90,000 a year. Little do you know that you will literally be out on the road driving for 300 days out of the year. You could be making $90,000 per year at that company, but if another driver can make $70,000 while having a higher per mile pay, working less hours, having more home time and weekends off, in my opinion, they have a much, much better job. And it's just not my opinion, but if you were to look at their real and effective hourly pay for both positions, the company offering $70,000 has a much, much higher hourly pay rate than the $90,000 company. Not only is the second job objectively better if you take into account your time spent working, but it's also healthier for the driver, and they're much more likely to stay with the company and continue being a truck driver. Personally speaking, this is kind of the approach that I like to follow at Guild 22. Our drivers start at 62 cents per mile. They work 5 to 10 hours less per week than the average driver does. They get weekends off, they're home every other day, and they still end up making $68,000 to $70,000 per year. Also, not to mention, our drivers are also paid for some of their on-duty, not driving work, and they get performance bonuses on top of all that. I actually calculated out our drivers' real per hour pay, and on average, they made about $27 to $30 an hour. Again, that's their real hourly pay. The industry average, if you remember, is somewhere around $18 to $20 an hour. So the next time you're scrolling through Facebook and you see an ad for a new position, spend some time figuring out how much you're really gonna get paid for your time. You know, trucking is a great industry to be a part of if you're thinking about joining, and you can make a lot of money, but you just need to find the right company to work with. I guess this is a perfect segue to promote Guild 22. So we're actually expanding like crazy in 2022, and if you want to join the boom and work in a high quality, high paying trucking company as a company driver or owner operator, feel free to submit an application online at www.guild22.com/careers. We're always looking for hardworking talent to join the team, and I personally would love to see you behind the wheel of a Guild 22 truck. So yeah, that's all for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. I'm going to be dropping some of my best videos in 2022, so you don't want to miss out. Also, feel free to share this video on your Facebook. I'm sure some of your friends that are considering becoming a truck driver would find this video super useful, because not a lot of people talk about this type of stuff, you know, your real hourly wage. But again, I cover a lot of different trucking and business related videos on this channel. So yeah, with that being said, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.